So if you're like most people, you probably have some vague goals floating around in your head, like to work out more, or to lose weight, or to drink more water, or to make more money. And setting those types of goals is easy. But crafting something compelling that will actually get you to move is something completely different. So if you dare to actually grow and to actually move the needle, we need to dare to make our goals and dreams more personal and unique and distinctively our own. And I want to show you today, if you can be curious and honest and humble in your planning, you will be unstoppable. So today we're talking about how plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And today I want to show you the 6-step approach that helped me turn vague ambitions into clear, motivating action. And I'll also give you tools for how to design a plan that actually works when everything gets thrown off course, because the odds are it will. So let's start with the first piece, and that is your goal. So this diagram right here is your goal target. Now we don't want to start at the outer ring of generic goals like I want to lose more weight or drink more water, or a vague desire like I want to start a YouTube channel, but we want to get something that is distinctly yours, that if you were to write it down on a piece of paper, and if I were to stumble upon it on the street, if I were to pick up that piece of paper, I should be able to know whose goal that is because it's so unique and so distinctively your own. And so when most people make goals, it sounds more like something that they need to check off a to-do list, but that's not motivating, it's not inspiring, it's not compelling, it's not going to get you to actually move and actually drive you in the long run. So what we're going to do now is show how to actually take your vague dream and desire. How can we actually make it distinctively yours? So before we move on, get it in your mind. Something, it could be vague. We'll start with vague, that's fine. Something, maybe you want to start a YouTube channel, you want to write a book, you want to create some music, but it should be something that you feel that only you could do in the way that you can do it. Only you can tell this certain story. Only you can have this certain type of YouTube channel, for example. So get it in your mind. It's okay if it's vague because we're going to make it more specific in a moment. So imagine saying this. Instead of saying, I want to write a book, you say, I want to write a book that only I can write. And that is a completely different type of motivation altogether. So one way you can do this, and I first heard of this principle from a YouTuber, Joseph Zar, and it's where you refract something through your value prism. So you, in this case, what I want to do is I want to take his concept, and you start with a goal, like you want to write a book, and then we think through this prism, what are our values? So I want you to look at this list of values. There are tons of values even that are not included on this list, but I want you to think of what are your top 3 values. And then anytime you go to make music, if you value authenticity, that song is authentic. If you value bravery, then anytime you go to write that book, you showcase bravery and you do it in a brave way. If you value evolution and personal growth, then anytime you make a YouTube video, you're doing it through the lens of personal growth. So this is just the first step in making that goal distinctively your own. So now let's move on to the second big mistake, which is confusing output goals and input goals. In this goal machine, a lot of people set goals around their outputs, the outcomes they want to achieve. They want to lose 20 pounds, they want to hit 6 figures, they want to have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. But the thing about your outcomes and your results is that we do not have 100% control over them, and we cannot schedule a timeline for the success of our outputs. But what you can control are your inputs. Your inputs are the actions and things that you do to get the results. This could be going to the gym 3 times a week. This could be posting videos 3 times a week. This could be sitting down to write every day. So outputs are what you get, the growth in numbers, the growth in money, the weight lost, and inputs are what you're going to actually do to get those outputs. And when you do those actions consistently in alignment with your values to a high quality and with a little magic and luck sprinkled in, that is what will give you your results. So sometimes when people set goals, maybe they'll set a goal for a 12-week goal for the quarter. They might say, okay, I want to be at 300 subscribers by the end of May, 600 subscribers by the end of June, and 1,000 subscribers by the end of July. But you cannot put timelines on results. It is very difficult to actually set goals around results. But then the question is, well, then what do you do? What's the point of goal setting? What do we do instead? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to keep your results front of mind. Every day you're going to write down, I have 1,000 subscribers. You put it on your mirror and you track it every day. So you measure your results and you track it every day. Okay, today I've got 600 subscribers. Okay, tomorrow I've got 601 subscribers. And so you track your results, but you plan around your actions and timelines around your actions. So this brings us to the core of the strategy, which is forward thinkers are backward planners. And so to build a real plan that's in alignment with what you ultimately want, you say, if my goal is X, what would need to have happened? What actions would I need to have taken in order to get that result in 3 months. Now, we're not guaranteed to get it in 3 months. We don't have complete control over this, but we do have control over our actions. We can say what would need to have happened. And this is the beginning of your reverse blueprint. So let's say your goal is to make your first $100 online in the next 3 months. What would need to have happened? Well, maybe you want to have posted 36 videos over the course of those 12 weeks, maybe 3 videos a week, and you want to have a product to sell. You want to have a digital product to sell, and that's how you feel like is the best way you could do it. So then what would need to have happened by June? Well, you need to have posted 24 videos and you need to have drafted the product. And then what would need to have happened by May? I would have to have posted 12 videos and maybe just brainstorming the product. So then when we get to May, we're going to plan our weeks. So if I wanted by the end of May to have the product brainstormed, then maybe the first week I'll brain dump all the ideas. The second week I can eliminate ideas. Then I can outline half of it and then outline the full thing. And then when I get to that week, I can plan my days. So if by the end of week 1, I wanted to brain dump all my ideas, then I can realize maybe I don't actually need to work on this every day. It seemed like this big, massive project, but I actually all I need to do is do 1 hour this week actually, and I'll be on schedule. And that's one of the best things about planning is it gives you permission to just loaf around if you want to. If you want to go on social media, you know that you're on schedule. And that's something that's always fulfilling is to know, oh, I actually can just hang out right now. I don't need to feel guilty or shame for relaxing right now. So this is called segmenting your plan. You make benchmarks for the months. When you get to that month, make benchmarks for the week. When you get to that week, make benchmarks for the days. And you want to make a plan that feels grounded. Not perfect, but feels real. If you cannot sustain it, if you cannot sustain the plan, then it's not a realistic plan. So we're not making a plan that a perfect person could follow, but we're making a plan that says, oh, I could spend 1 hour this week on it. Yeah, I can definitely do that. And now here comes the part that most people miss. Your plan will fail. Not because you didn't try or you did something wrong, but just because that's how life works. You'll fall behind, you'll pivot, something will come out of left field. For that reason, I love this quote by Eisenhower. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Because it's not the plan that matters, it's what planning does to you. It forces you to clarify your vision, it forces you to sequence your priorities, and it gives you a map. And even if you end up leaving that path, it gives you some direction for where you want to go, and it gives you informed action on what your first step should be. Sitting around in inaction and this analysis paralysis is not getting us anywhere. So even if we start off in the wrong direction, it's not permanent and we can always pivot. And all that information we got going the wrong direction is so much more valuable than 10 years of sitting there ideating. So a few reasons that plans are worthless. 1, people have been making plans around their outputs and you cannot schedule your results. You can make informed choices, but you cannot create a perfect timeline to get those results. Another reason they're worthless is you'll go off in one direction, you'll decide you didn't like it and you'll pivot and then you'll pivot again and eventually you'll narrow in on the thing you actually want, but the first plan you make is certainly probably not going to be ultimately what you wanted. The other thing is that we get behind, sometimes just due to laziness or something comes up. So my rule is if we are behind just an hour, I try to get it done by the end of the day. I try to reschedule, see if I can work faster, get it done by the end of the day. If I am a day behind, I try to make it up by the end of the week. And if I'm a week behind or more, I try to make it up by the end of the month. So that's just one reason why you have to be planning and replanning. And I love the quote, no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. That is a great quote. That is exactly why plans in and of themselves are worthless. But the second part of the quote, planning is everything. The process of thinking through key elements, clarifying, prioritizing, sequencing is invaluable. Every minute spent planning saves 10 minutes of execution. So if you've been avoiding planning because things never go to plan, I want to offer a reframe. It's not that planning is bad, it's that you've been doing it for the wrong reason and trying to predict the future. But planning is not about prediction, because our predictions are often going to be false. It's about preparation. So it's not about the external results of the plan going perfectly. It's about what it's doing internally. It's about how it's changing our inputs, how it's changing our thoughts, how it changes our values, and how that then affects the external world and how it will become an output and a result. And when you plan well, even if the plan changes, you don't get lost. Because you went inside, you found what you really wanted, you set a goal that was distinctively your own, you know your values, you pivot when is needed, but even when all seems lost and externally it's not working and the plans are behind, you are closer and closer by planning to finding who you are and what you want to do and what you're made to do and what you actually like. So for that reason, plans are worthless, but planning is everything.